subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to get all the latest updates. Hi everyone, my name is Anita Sharma and I welcome you all at Import of Media once again. Today I'm going to be speaking with Professor Srinivas Sridharan, who has more than 25 years of experience in different cultures and countries. He has worked in India, Australia, USA, Canada, and in this interaction, he is going to talk about all these experiences in terms of academia and research. I'm sure this interaction is going to be very interesting, and I request you all to join me in welcoming Professor Srinivas Sridharan. Thank you so much, sir. I welcome you at Impact Hub Media. So, you have worked in different capacities in different universities and cultures. You are currently an associate professor at Monash Business School. You have taught different courses in marketing area and built your career profile in terms of research and marketing and now social innovations. The research is evolving, as you told me in our informal conversation. I would like to start this discussion from your engineering days from BITS Pilani. Tell me more about that journey, that how it started from engineering to physics to marketing, PhD in marketing from Cali Business School, one of the top business schools in the world. How that happened, if you can throw some light on your journey and share your journey through Import Hub Media to the world of academia and researchers.
Sure. Well, while in high school, my idea was always to pursue engineering studies in college. That's what I was used to, and that's what most of my friends wanted to do as well. So when I got admission in BITS Pilani, it was for physics with a promise of adding engineering from the second year. They have the famous double degree. So naturally, I took that admission. That was the best decision of my life, I would say.
Uh-huh.
Got to study in one of the most wonderful colleges in India. But the thing is, I didn't use the time there well academically. I think
Okay.
living away from home as a teenager, so many miles away, literally the opposite ends of the country. And at that age, a lot of jovial pastimes took over, and academics really took a beating, particularly
Mhm.
physics. So, as a result, what happened was when the campus interviews started arriving, I was not very confident in my job interviews at the time, and I ended up taking the first job that would have me. So that whatever offer I got first turned out it was not a great fit for me. It was not in my field of mechanical engineering, but rather in electronics. Um, but it gave me a lot of experience in marketing and sales in an engineering environment. And it was in those days, I met a classmate of mine who was at that time doing a PhD in finance at Vanderbilt University in the US. So it was from him that I learned about doing a PhD in management fields, how that offered a well-funded pathway as opposed to master's degrees. Sometimes you get financial aid, sometimes you don't.
Mhm.
And then this could lead to a stable career, whether academic or otherwise.
Mhm.
So the prospect of actually I had just finished 5 years of study and I was working. The prospect of 5 more years of studying was, of course, very, very daunting. But I was miserable in my job at that time. And I had also fallen ill with typhoid, jaundice, conjunctivitis,
Oh my
all in the
God.
space of just 6 months that year.
Oh my
So I
God.
was physically and psychologically, I guess, at a very low point, and a fresh start. It felt like at the time just what the doctor ordered, really. So then I dedicated myself to writing the GRE. I wrote GRE rather than GMAT because I wanted to keep my engineering master's options also open.
Mhm.
Did very well in it, and then applied to a few universities and got admission to the marketing doctoral program at Kelly at Indiana University. But once I got there, I think that's when it happened. Like within a few weeks, the whole academic thing just captivated me.
Mhm.
I mean, it was about maybe studying in a stunningly beautiful college campus. Maybe it was attending seminars in shorts. Maybe it was about spending long hours in the library. Maybe hitting the coffee shops at late at night, writing a lot. Just something about that whole experience felt very sophisticated, very sheltered from kind of the rough and tumble of, say, corporate life.
Mhm.
Um, we were also penniless, sharing apartments as a graduate student. We used to watch movies at the $1 theater locally. You have to show your student card, and you get to pay $1. So I think all of this added in. So that's when I knew I wanted to stick to the academic life
Mhm.
from there on. So that's how the overall transition happened.
Okay. So if I have to summarize, you had a fun time during your engineering days, and then it's like Chetan Bhagat's movie, Five Point Someone, the novel Five Point Someone, as in you enjoyed, had a good time, and Bits Pilani, and then you never enjoyed your corporate job, and then your friend took you, pulled you towards your PhD journey, and then the entire college campus motivated you, captivated you to perform much, much, much better in academics after you joined the PhD program.
That's right.
Okay,
Ironically,
so
the friend who motivated me for the PhD, actually, he left his PhD midway
okay,
and went on to bigger things. I must say, went on to really big things. He became India's youngest ever Bombay Stock Exchange CEO eventually. So he did
okay.
very well for himself. But he did move on from that PhD space.
So I
So
think life takes very different and strange turns and directions. So I think you can always show this interview to him that he changed your direction towards research and helped you a lot to build this particular type of
absolutely.
career, which is satiating and much more fulfilling. Have a purpose on this journey. Okay, I want to ask a very specific question here because you have an experience of more than 25 years now, and you have worked in different countries. Tell me more about the difference in Canadian universities or Australian universities, and you have had a brief experience in America as well. Tell me how these
Yeah.
experiences shaped you as a human being, and how academically all these institutes are different from
Yeah.
India.
Well, I mean, at an overall cultural level, I'd have to say first, America really felt like an extension of my Bitsian life. I think in
Uh-huh.
Bits Pilani, we experienced a level of freedom that it wasn't reasonable to expect in most other colleges in India at the time. So, in a same sort of way, in America, in a student town, like a university town, one felt like one could do a variety of things, and there was a lot of freedom. So I really enjoyed that. I think the can do kind of an environment was very it had a big impact. I
Mhm.
found that in America, and I know that later, for example, when we moved to Canada and then to Australia, there was rather more at every turn, people would come and tell you what you can't do rather than what you can do. So that experience stayed with me. But going closer to academics, I think in the US, I mean, I could sense that it was all about research especially at a big public university like Indiana. Teaching really only played a second fiddle. Maybe people don't like to hear this now, but at least in the late 90s and the early 2000s when I was there, that's how it was. As grad students, we were in the building all the time. We had something called a doc lab. The doctoral students had their own lab. We
Mhm.
still worked on desktop and Windows 95 in those days. So we spent a lot of time in the doc lab. We would go to the gym together, maybe to cheap takeaway Chinese food together. And also this included weekends, right? Maybe for a small exception for Saturday mornings, but several of our professors would also be there, at least on Sundays. So there was a bit of a fear of missing out, of not being there on a weekend. These kind of informal episodes, I think, led to tighter relationships with your professors, and your PhD thesis tended to progress faster. Other research projects got done in parallel with your own thesis. And there was much tacit learning about the whole process, that, like, that unspoken passing on. I think about research and publication, as you would know, is at best, a really difficult kind of a sphere. So that tacit learning was helped a lot, because otherwise research can be a very individual and lonely career. And then when I got to Canada, this was for my first academic job. That's when I faced another culture. Like, I started going in on the weekends, even though our first child was about to be born then. I just, by rote, by habit, I started going in to work on the weekends. And then I noticed, where is everybody? I couldn't see anyone. And then slowly I learned that that whole Canadian university culture was a lot kinder, a lot more laid back than the American one. Almost no one came into work on weekends. So secretly, I began to love that. Like I said, we just had our first child, and I mean, obviously, one had an urge to spend weekends at home. So I overcame the guilt and all of that, and I was glad the Canadian system was what it was. So I think Canada was about more rounded work-life balance, and research in particular was very generously supported by government grants, which you had a reasonable probability of getting. In America, just forget it. I mean, NSF grants, like, extremely competitive, hardly anything for social science, dominated by, the hard sciences and everything. Whereas Canada had a social sciences and humanities research council on its own. So these things helped. Now, I'm in Australia now for the last 11 years.
Okay.
It's a totally different system to the other two countries. For starters, there's no tenure system here in university. So that fundamental sense of protection of your career is somewhat absent. So I notice, therefore, academics here have developed a lifestyle that's rather closer to any conventional 9 to 5 job. Come in at a certain time, leave at a certain time, apply for annual leave, sick leave, all these kinds of things. This was a culture shock to me when I first arrived. But then eventually I understood it's because most Australian universities are public universities. They are funded by the government. So the government really asks for a lot of reporting back. So many audits, documentation, so very bureaucratic systems.
Okay.
But that apart, Australia is very good in scientific research, especially the convergence of the life sciences with biophysical sciences along with social sciences. So I'd say the research culture here has a bit more multidisciplinary convergence than the other two countries. So that's at the academic level. Life in Australia, everyone has heard about it. It's great cities. Everyone lives in the cities here. There's hardly that much going on outside the big cities. And, everywhere there are beaches and all of that. Melbourne was voted as the most livable city in the world for many years. This year, we have earned another dubious distinction. It's the most lockdown city in the world at this point in time.
Yes.
So I think we've transitioning through these countries, both at personal and kind of academic levels, I guess one learned a lot.
Okay, so I would like to ask you here, which setup, which system you like the most?
I mean, it's hard to pick like that, but maybe I'll play it diplomatically by saying I love each one of the three for its own specific thing. So with America, it's for that whole entrepreneurial, can do anything kind of a flair. And for Canada, for that softer kind of outlook. Like, we had both our children there. I saw firsthand what the health system did for you in America. Just completely forget about it. There's no way we could have got that kind of support and assistance from the system. And here in Australia, it's neither that kind or rounded as Canada, nor as entrepreneurial as America. But it has its vibe. Like people are, proud of their. Like you could go speak to a carpenter and a professor would stand in the road and speak to each other, and you wouldn't know which one is which. So I love that down to earth. I don't care who you are or what you are doing in your day job, kind of a realism to life here. That's
Here in
something that I
Australia.
don't think I would have found in either of those two countries.
Okay, okay. So I my first international trip was for a conference was to Australia. So I also experienced in those 5 days. They don't care about the background, the work, and other things. It's just they respect being human, and the humanism aspect is there. I have also witnessed that, and my parents also.
Yeah.
They were also there with me in that conference. So for all of us, it was a first international visit.
Yeah.
We really enjoyed, we thoroughly enjoyed the entire experience. I have one interesting question for you because I can see that there is a background wherein you are sitting right now, and I can see a lot of some photographs wherein cricketers are being shown.
Yeah.
I think you are a very big cricket fan and you played cricket yourself as well. Um, how academia perceive pursuing hobbies?
Yeah.
How this academic? This is a very different and strange question which I'm having because
Yeah.
you have I think I get a lot of questions from academia that academic world perceives you extremely differently if you are doing something beyond expected.
Yeah.
So how what is your perception towards that?
I think that is true
Mhm.
by and large. I mean, I must say that my experience as a student in Pilani with my professors there, that was a bit limited. We were young. We weren't observing whether our professors had other hobbies or not. But the rest of it is shaped in the Western world. And I think it's part of that Western psyche to firstly think of sports and fitness as a priority. So right from America, like in the US, I remember one of our professors was a squash champion, and he would put up a ladder of
Mhm.
as doctoral students against him, and anybody who can get a few games out of him, like not defeat him fully, but a few games, like moving up and down the ladder was used to be one of those things. We
Mhm.
also had Ramesh Krishnan, sorry, not Ramesh Krishnan, Shankar Krishnan, who is the cousin of Ramesh Krishnan.
Mhm.
So Shankar also played the Davis Cup for India in tennis.
Mhm.
So he was one of our marketing professors at Kelly. So again, a bunch of people, with tennis and all of that, they would rally around that. So the hobby thing was always seen as positive. We had I think, a national swimming champion as another kind of professor, and I'm telling this guy was 55 or something like that. So in his day, he had won. I think he had gone to the Olympics and all that. So he was a stats professor. So all those things, always you always heard about those stories. So I think there is that admiration of that.
Mhm.
And here too, our provost, who recently left, he is Canadian, but he also was here for 4 or 5 years. He would run from his house somewhere. Like I think he lived in a suburb which was about 15 kilometers or so away from our campus. So he would run into campus every morning,
Okay.
and he would have all most of his meetings kind of walking around on campus. We could see him with a bunch of others walking around on campus. And then when the day is done, sometimes when I go to the car park, I would see him in all his running gear, walking with a senior colleague to his whoever it was, his car. But then after they were done talking, he would start running, right? Like it was almost dark, but he would start running back the 15 kilometers.
Wow.
So I think that element of hobby in academics is always seen as a good thing. And I think that is causing a lot of anxiety to people now, because now compared to 20 years ago, I feel like many of us feel a greater pressure to publish or perish, teach with very high teaching ratings and all of that, a lot more than ever before. So when the pressures are like that, but when the culture values hobbies and other things a lot, that's from a bygone era when academics used to be able to support that. So there is now a conflict, right? Like you want to be that person who has interesting hobbies, but you don't have the time, and the pressure doesn't allow you to. So I find a lot of people a bit worried like that.
Yeah, so there is still debate going on. So don't know. I'll ask multiple these type of questions to many people, and let's see what is the response. And
Yeah.
so you are the first one to be asked this question. So
Okay.
I really wanted to know about it because we perceive academia in a different way. We generally do not post all these things in social media and try to keep silent the way we are
Yeah.
doing, conducting in different platforms, at different platforms. But it is coming, and we keep on hearing different aspects around hobbies and
True.
pursuing
In fact,
hobbies.
yeah,
So
I mean,
yeah.
even sorry to interrupt, even like when we connected on LinkedIn,
Mm,
I mean, I would almost say that's now a hobby, right? Like I never used to post on LinkedIn or social media, but
mm,
now I find myself posting. It's generally always around academic life somehow, one way or another. But every now and then, I do have the opportunity to venture a little farther. I might have said some story about the past, and I've noticed, okay, that's become a hobby now.
mhm,
And you're right. Earlier, we were programmed into
mhm,
maintaining our profile in a very
mhm.
neutral sort of way. But even writing, light writing, you could call it a hobby. People are doing a bit more of that now, I think.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. So we are actually have now paucity of due to paucity of time. I will just do last round with you around some light bites because
Yeah.
this has been interesting, but something around rapid fire because that
Yeah.
makes the conversation kind of very interesting. So I'll do
Yeah.
that with you as well. I've
Sure.
recently started this particular practice with professors, so let's do it
Yeah.
with you. And my first question to you is your personal favorite memory of your life.
Okay. When I was very young, I used to travel from down south in Tamil Nadu to Delhi by
Mhm.
train with my grandfather.
Uh-huh.
Those were really unforgettable trips, and actually, it put me into a lifelong love of train travel, which I do
Mhm.
till this day. So that would have to be a personal favorite memory.
Great. Next question. Could you please recite your favorite Monash cheer?
I truly have no, no idea whether there is a Monash cheer. So I wouldn't know. But of course, I do know the Monash motto, which is
Okay.
Ancora Imparo, which is
Uh-huh.
Latin for I am still learning,
Uh-huh.
which I really relate to.
Okay. So I don't know if you are a movie buff or a bibliophile, but let me ask you a question around films. Which film has had the biggest impact on you?
Actually, I gave up watching films about 12 years ago.
Oh my God.
So if you didn't mind, I would stick to books.
Okay, please
Right?
tell me your
So
favorite book and the impact which this book has created on you.
sure. So R.K. Narayan, everyone's kind of favorite writer, I suppose, if you're Indian. That
Mm,
first book that he wrote about the town Malgudi,
mm,
the book was Swami and Friends.
mm,
That book I probably read when I was maybe 15 or something like that, and that really it has remained with me till now.
mhm,
Absolutely love R.K. Narayan's writing in general, but his whole Malgudi series of books in particular. I think back all the time, like why did it stick to me so much? So I think it did two things to me. simultaneously, I would say. And I think one of them was very positive, but the other was very negative.
Okay.
And it happened at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So on the positive side, um, it awakened in me the romance of the idyllic South Indian village, which I related to very much, because when I read that story, I was living in a South Indian village. But of course, I was living in the daily hustle and bustle of that village. And he had written about an idyllic time. So I didn't know that kind of some of the visuals that I saw on an everyday basis could be written like that in such beautiful way. So that whole village life, the romance of that got awakened in me. That was a positive impact. I've always taken pride in my background and my early days as a village person till this day. So therefore, and on the negative side, that book was the first to awaken the outrage in me about how we were treated in colonial India. Even though his book was a work of fiction, uh, I just couldn't stand it. The classroom, that teacher Ebenezer or someone, whoever he was, the way he would go about it, uh, it generated that outrage as a young boy, because normally, growing up in the 80s, just school and everything, you didn't really hear much about all these things. So his book then started a lifelong learning project for me about our own history, and how what all we went through, etc., and the whole freedom struggle and so on. So I guess that's the book that will always stay with me as an early impact kind of a book.
Okay, okay. So my next rapid fire question to you. What little known facts about the research would you like to tell to your young research scholars?
Okay, so everybody thinks that you have to develop an idea at some stage quickly and then pursue that idea. Even if there's a little bit of discomfort here and there, you just work with that and focus, right? For me, I would say almost the opposite, in the sense that, of course, pursue your idea, but if you have any sense of discomfort that you keep getting about your work, I would say you have to accommodate that sense of discomfort and even nurture it, because it may flower into something else. And that something else may turn out to be kind of your calling card for the rest of your career.
Okay.
I think it happened to me with respect to the research ideas you pursued. But I'm even able to relate it to what you said at the beginning of the interview. You had a journey, you had the job, there was some level of discomfort in certain areas, and you finally accommodated that, nurtured that, and it entirely became something else.
Mhm.
So that's what I would say. It's not a little known fact, but it is a little thought about tactic, I suppose.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to ask you the last question from in this
Yeah.
rapid fire. Which quotation most deeply resonates with you?
Okay. So I was thinking about this, and I've got a little slightly larger quote. It's by our first Governor General of Independent India, C. Rajagopalachari. So when he founded a journal called Swarajya in those days, so he started with his editorial in this manner. So he says, "There is before the country the great problem of how to secure welfare without surrendering the individual to be swallowed up by the state, how to get the best return for the taxes that people pay, and how to preserve spiritual values while at the same time working for better material standards of life." And then he said, this journal will serve all these purposes. I keep thinking about this all the time and wondering, if politicians in the modern time, if only they had this entire breadth of vision, right? Like,
Hmm.
nowadays you're either left wing or you're right wing,
Yeah.
you're either against business or for business. And for someone of that intellect to have kind of put it all like that. I always admire that quote.
Wow, awesome. I think no better quote would summarize the entire interaction as well, because we talked about multi-country experiences, research experiences, and um, the entire gamut of this particular quote talks about that we need to think beyond ourselves, and that Swaraj is something which we all need to take care. Thank you so much. This has been one of the most interesting interactions I've ever had on Import Hub. It was really, really thought provoking and very interesting. Thank you so much, sir.
I am flattered by your support. Thank you. I thank you for giving me this opportunity. As I said, I would like to reiterate that this is wonderful. I mean, for academics to share their stories and their journeys, and for it to have, for whatever that is worth for other people, it's just a fabulous job that you're doing. So more power to you, and more such interesting conversations, in future to you. And I look forward to the growth of the Inkpot Hub
Thank you.
enterprise.
Thank you so much. And trust me, this has been the most interesting conversations I have ever had on Import Hub. Seriously. And I mean it.
Fantastic. No, I'm really gratified. And these are all ideas, and people share ideas, and I feel passionately about certain things. And as academics, I think we should. So thanks for that opportunity again. And in the future, however your journey works, we'll stay in touch and talk more.
Certainly. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's great to see you all here. Thank you for watching our work. If you have not subscribed to Import Hub Media, then please hit the bell icon and subscribe to our channel and support research celebrations in India.